You're out there, licensed and trying, but something still feels off. You're isolated, you're overwhelmed, you're unsure who to ask for help or what your next move should be. The truth, most new adjusters go through this, but the ones who succeed don't go it alone. Today I'm sitting down with Nat Arroyave, a seasoned adjuster, team manager, and creator of Adjuster Hour. She's faced these same challenges and built something powerful to overcome them. We're talking real world adversity, mentorship, and how community can completely change your career. So let's jump in, starting now. This video is sponsored in part by the National Association of Catastrophe Adjusters. Become a member and join the thousands of adjusters who've benefited from this critical organization at NACAADJUSTER.org. That's NACAadjuster.org.
When I was 16, my family lost everything in Hurricane Katrina. I'm from a little small town right outside of New Orleans, and that affected me greatly. So when I became 21, I decided I was going to make a difference and become a property adjuster.
Yeah, that's Hurricane Katrina was that was a nasty one. That was my third hurricane, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I had all my claims were in Mississippi.
Oh.
On the Waveland and those areas.
Sure. So being from New Orleans, essentially, when I got old enough, being a property adjuster, it meant more to me since I knew what it felt like to lose everything. Essentially, I was able to do that with my insurance. I was able to have that peace of mind and understanding of what they were going through. So
yeah, I've
done that 14 years. I was out in the field for about 11 years in Louisiana. So I'm still in Louisiana. I live in Baton Rouge. I've traveled all around the state of Louisiana. So as I've gotten older, I have 2 children. I can't really climb roofs anymore, or I shouldn't climb roofs. I don't want to climb roofs anymore.
Sure.
Now that I have children, it kind of makes you stop and think, okay, they would probably be really upset if mama got hurt. But now I'm on the inside. I've joined the dark side of desk adjusting. I'm essentially just a glorified desk adjuster, which I miss the field. You understand, once you're in the field, it's hard to get out.
Yep.
But here I am. And last year, I don't know if you ever heard of Minuteman Adjusters. Minuteman Adjusters contacted me to set up their IA firm from the ground up. And so with that, I was tasked with getting 1099 adjusters onboarded, but to be loyal to our firm, which you can imagine.
It's hard.
It's really hard. So one day I was brainstorming. I come up with ideas kind of on the whim. And I said, you know what? What if we did every single day at 2:00, I did an adjuster hour where we show up on Teams, we create a virtual office hour where I give them my attention. We'll do like mini trainings, we'll do claim examples, we'll look at engineer reports. And I did that every single day. For the first couple weeks, only one adjuster came. And I was like, I'm just going to keep doing it. And then all of a sudden, 2, 3, 10, 20 adjusters would come every single day. I would have a room full of adjusters. And we just made it this, I called them my crew. We had this really tight crew of 1099, just off the wall adjusters. You know how it is.
Yeah.
From all over the country that would show up every day. And I miss that so much. I love my crew. I love them so much. However, Minuteman Adjusters, like many other IA firms, they were acquired by a much larger firm. So with that, we had to end our run of Adjuster Hour. And so now I'm trying to bring that back to life, but on a larger scale for property adjusters that kind of feel lost. Kind of like, you do something similar. Try to build a safe community. The adjuster Facebook community is rough. It's rough out there. So with Adjuster Hour, I'm trying to recreate that. We have the guest speakers, of course, as you've seen, other insurance professionals that kind of give their point of view on things and give advice and just kind of have a good time and try to bring us all back together again. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Being a great adjuster isn't just about policy and software. You got to know the difference between hail damage and worn out shingles. Hague has the gold standard books and certifications to back you up in the field or at the desk. Scan the QR code or hit HagueEducation.com and use AdjusterTV for a discount and level up with Hague. With the Adjuster Hour, you kind of sort of maybe stumbled on something that is not really that intuitive for IA firms, and that is, as far as a retention strategy, and this is something, as a YouTuber, right, and it's sort of like a digital marketer, if you can establish awareness of your brand or your business, and then you can, through interacting with your viewers or your, people on your roster, you can establish that, or they can kind of start to get to know you and kind of get to like you. And then, at some point in there, then they'll start to trust you. And I think that's a really interesting way to think about for any IA firm to do something like this, where it's maybe more interactive or it's less corporate-y, kind of like scripted and sort of button up and all that kind of stuff. And I think that, and it's a challenge, and I've had conversations with IA firms kind of along these lines, that and a lot of them have sort of corporate overlords that bought them, and it's some faceless multinational, and they've got super strict branding and public PR stuff, and colors and the words we use and all this kind of stuff. And obviously doing this, you have to have a face, right? So you're the face of Adjuster Hour. An IA firm would have to find somebody on the team or hire somebody to be the face who knows all the, where all the guardrails are and everything. So it's pretty interesting. Question I have for you. So you were in the field for a number of years. Did you do mostly CAT?
No, I did mostly daily claims. I did mostly dailies. However, being in Louisiana, cats are in my backyard. So I never had to travel. I was so lucky in that sense that every hurricane that hit, I would just make it home every night. It would be long days, but being in Baton Rouge, it's a central location. I've handled dailies all over the state. I'm telling you, every nook and cranny of Louisiana I've been to. And we get joked on. We get, Louisiana has its brand, but honestly, Louisiana is, if you really look, it's one of the most beautiful places in the country with the I love truly. The swamps, the cypress trees. It's really beautiful. It's just it's perspective. Everything's perspective.
Yeah, for sure. So do you, in your experience as a field adjuster, climbing roofs and doing all that kind of stuff, as a woman, do you feel like that there are any special challenges? If you're going to talk to people in my audience who, I think something around 80% of my viewers are male, but the other 20% are female. And they may be like, well, I don't know if I want to get into it or not. Is it safe? Can I, am I going to be able to handle ladders? Am I going to be taken seriously by contractors and homeowners and that kind of thing? So talk about your experience with that, and if those were even factors, and if they were, what you did to kind of overcome them.
Yeah, those are huge factors. So I started when I was 21. I'm going to be 36 this year. So if you can imagine, at 21, I looked about 12 years old.
Sure.
I weighed about 110 pounds. I absolutely looked like I didn't belong in this industry. However, given my background and passion that I had, nothing was going to keep me from doing this career. Nothing, no one was going to stop me from doing this. I was set on, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And I had to have that motivation, that passion to drive me, because I was met with wall after wall of distrust by contractors, insureds. They would just look at me and they would ask me questions like, okay, where's your dad? Is he going to show up? Is he the adjuster? Are you the assistant? Sexist comments. I would get asked to go to dinner by the contractors if I bought, they bought the roof. Would they, they could take me to dinner, just stuff like
Right.
that, just crazy stuff. Um,
Well, that
every
happens to guys. So, but maybe not like, we didn't get like a pat on the rear end or anything like that, but
yeah, it was, they would want to hold my ladder and set my ladder up for me, the things like that. And you can absolutely do this job as a female. If I can do it at 21, any female, you have to have that passion and that, you don't come into this with a financial mindset. Come into it with, this is a career. This is what
yep.
I'm going to do. Have that motivation. Knowledge is power. So when you go out to meet with these insureds, meet with the contractors, you have to know what you're talking about. The minute you the minute you slip,
Yep.
that's the end of it. So I learned really quickly that knowledge was power for me, and I would have to go head to head with these contractors, seasoned contractors, that were
Yeah.
adamant about their representation of the claim. So I have to tell you, it was very tough for me. I've found myself in dangerous situations where I've had to leave claims because of the interactions with insureds.
Sure.
That happened a handful of times. But, you just have to, I'm street smart. I don't look street smart, but I grew up right outside of New Orleans. I'm very street smart. So
Sure.
I kind of had that background. I grew up right by the Ninth Ward, which is, I don't know if you're familiar with the lower Ninth Ward of New
I've heard of
Orleans.
it.
Yeah, so that's where I grew up. But for any female in the industry, remind yourself, what is the motivation here? What is the motivating factor? Do you want to help people? You can help people. I tell people that all the time. Helping your insureds is knowing your policy to the fullest and knowing how the insurance policy works. That's how you help people. So you got to have that motivation and that passion, or you won't make it.
Absolutely. And I think that goes for really anybody. All right. If you're making real money as an adjuster, don't leave your career exposed. Errors and omissions and general liability insurance from Kaplik is designed just for you, and it might even be cheaper than what you're already paying. Snap this QR code right here or visit cplic.net/AdjusterTV to grab the free guide and lock in smarter protection today. You did that for a number of years. How many years were you in the field?
11.
11. Okay. Mm-hmm. So probably by the end of your first year, you had a lot of reps under your belt. Mm-hmm. You had interaction after interaction after interaction. Yeah. You start hearing the same things over and over again, start getting the same sort of attitude from people. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of build strategies to deal with all that stuff, and you can anticipate it instead of being surprised by it. And honestly, and I think that, won't minimize, special challenges for females doing this, but everything that you've just said, mm-hmm. A guy is going to go through. Even like the trusting, I started when I was 29 years old and I looked like I was 15. And I got, mm-hmm. oh, you're too young to know anything about this or whatever. And you're absolutely right. In the very beginning, especially when you're inexperienced, mm-hmm. it's better to just keep your mouth closed than to open it a crack and have the people, because mm-hmm. it's like blood in the water, right? It's the second that an insured or contractor or anybody senses that you just don't have, you're kind of out of your depth, or you're a beginner, or you don't know, mm-hmm. you're not exactly, you're unsure, then you're going to get, and it happens to everybody. So it's not like it's, it's not like you can take steps certainly to avoid it. And I think just keeping one's mouth closed as much as possible. And if somebody has a question that you can't answer, let me take that down and I'll just, let me call my manager or whatever, right? It's just like right there. Being intimidated is something that can happen to anybody. Mm-hmm. When I first started doing this, I had a fundamental understanding of basic construction stuff, but doing restoration construction, finished surfaces, roof siding, mm-hmm. I didn't know what a window wrap was, and then interior stuff. It's just reps, right? And really the core of what you said is, I think, that is something that can guide anybody, no matter what, no matter who they are, where they come from, what color they are, what gender they are, any of that stuff. And that is to believe that you can do this. Mm-hmm. There is a there, right? It's a career that actually people every day people are making $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year doing this every single day, and it is completely a meritocracy. You can walk into a room full of adjusters of every stripe and coming from any possible background, and you wouldn't be able to tell who's making a lot of money and who isn't.
Yeah, that's right.
And having that persistence, having the desire to help people first and foremost, because you have to have sort of a motivating, factor that drives you through everything. The money comes, and just sticking with it. If you quit, you won't win.
No, you can't quit. And
you just can't stop.
No. And with a career like this, the people who are actually in it for the property adjusting, they can't quit. They don't want to quit. They get a taste of it, and they want to keep going and going. And that's how it was for me. As soon as I had a taste of it, I didn't want to give it up.
Yeah. So talk about when you're talking about the taste of it, I know what you're talking about, but kind of explain to people, but beyond just the money, what is it? Because it kind of gets in your blood, and what is it about it that makes you and it's not for everybody, but I don't think it lights everybody up the same way. But for those of us who dive in head first, what are those things that kind of light you up about it? That click that Nat talked about, that moment where it all starts to make sense, that's not luck. That's what happens when you have a real community. Adjuster Hour was built to give adjusters exactly that, a place to ask questions, get answers, and keep growing. And we're just getting started. In part 2 of our conversation, we dive into how Adjuster Hour works and how you can get plugged in. And you can check that out right here on Nat's channel. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and have a great storm.